It's finally almost summertime again. You know what that means, right? Doing anything but making another episode. In fact, I may just end the show right now.
Hey, Professor, you know there's been a few people asking about that Tobias movie?
Yeah?
Well, maybe you should get on that.
And spoil this beautiful day.
Professor, you never go outside.
I most certainly do.
Oh yeah? Because that one time you fought Samuel Hill totally counts?
That was over 6 years ago, Joe. I've gone outside since then.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
You know what? Just for that, I'll do the Tobias video completely outside.
Okay then. Problem?
I don't like the sun. Okay, so time to talk about Tobias and the Half-Pariah. It's a fan film released back in 2014, but I had never actually gotten around to watching it despite knowing of it. So yeah, it took a decade, but finally for the purposes of this video, I can say that I have seen the film. Now before I review this thing, I gotta set some basic ground rules. I am very aware that this is a fan film made for YouTube as a passion project. I am not holding this to the standard of a professional production or even a higher budget indie. However, I'm just going to be pointing out things I notice. Like, I'm aware this film was made using some simulator from trains. Looks like it's from like 2006 or something. So I'm sure there was a ton of limitations with that. For example, there's scenes where stuff pops in from the background, and I'm just assuming that's part of the limits of the engine for the simulator. Like, the technical problems are not even really massive strikes against the movie. I'm just pointing shit out that I notice. Not even saying it's a criticism against the movie. Please don't comment stuff like, "It's a small budget fan film." I know, dude. I know many of you probably think I'm stupid. But do you think I'm legitimately delusional and just actually think this is free, unlicensed film that was not approved by HIT or Mattel or any other company that's been associated with the Thomas franchise is actually some big budget production? Of course not. If I notice something, I'm just gonna point it out, no biggie. This also applies to people who are gonna say, "Oh, well, this issue's resolved in the sequel." I have not yet watched the sequel. I'm sure it's better production quality and everything. It was made an entire decade after this film. However, we're not reviewing that film right now. The reason I bring this up is because a lot of people pointed out to me in the Sodor Fallout video that it was a low-budget production, just repurposing clips from the TV series. I'm aware of that. I didn't think it was unwatchable just because some of the tracking on the faces wasn't perfect, but if I see something, I'm just gonna point it out, that's all. Plus, just because something's low budget doesn't mean there isn't anything that can be improved. If you were to hold Sam Hill's Revenge, yeah, I'm freaking breaking the fourth wall here, but if you were to hold Sam Hill's Revenge to the standard of a Hollywood production or even a high-quality indie film, I think it would be a little unfair. However, I do think claims that the camera is out of focus in some shots or the ADR is bad at times, location sound is a lot of background noise, I would consider those to be valid technical criticisms because things like that cost next to nothing to at least improve somewhat. All I'm saying is if you have a problem with something I criticize in this review, that's fine. But please say something other than, "It's a limitation with trains," or "It's a low-budget production," or "It's better in the sequel," alright? I'm aware of all those things already. Okay, now that my Linkara-style rant is over, time to talk about the movie. This movie is about Toby, who's on a dying railway, and he meets the Fat Controller who invites him to come to his railway. When he gets there, the other engines are surprised by how powerful Toby is, being able to outdo all the others in both speed and strength. This angers Gordon, who gets jealous and tries to get revenge on Toby, which results in him being banished from the railway. He meets Duck, who is only referred to as his real name Montague in this film, and they create a plan to get revenge on Toby. You see, long ago, Montague was once a proud diesel who got in an accident with Toby, and his powerful engine was given to Toby, leaving Montague weak. So they have a big fight, and then Montague dies at the end. This movie is a much darker take on Thomas. It even has a few mild swear words. But it isn't as much of an edgelord as something like Shed 17. It's decent enough middle ground between the two. I do think it sometimes takes itself a little too seriously, some of the voice acting getting a little too dramatic for its own good. Speaking of which, the voice acting is okay. It has the usual YouTube movie thing where some actors have good mics and some do not. The actual performances themselves are fine, nothing overly terrible but nothing outstanding. There is one character whose performance I didn't quite like, but we'll get to that more in depth later. The film looks pretty good. The lighting is kind of flat, but I have no idea if that's even something that can be controlled in trains. There are some creative use of camera work, and there's a very clear attempt to make the movie look cinematic. I think the movie achieves this very well. The movie's action scenes are kind of a mixed bag though. The final fight scene was intense, but I feel like this movie as a whole just doesn't work as an action movie with fight scenes. You see, trains can only go forward or backwards on tracks, so there's only so much you can do with that concept. If this was like cars and had vehicles with more freedom, then maybe. But you can clearly see this movie try its hardest to make it work, and unfortunately it ruins the suspension of disbelief in some ways. For example, the points on the track seem to conveniently always be set to whatever was the right direction the character needs to go, even if they needed a matter of seconds to make that move. Also, there are numerous scenes where characters are just able to completely turn around even though there are no visible turntables nearby. The movie even cheats with this, having the camera cut away and then just magically they're turned around when the track doesn't appear to have any way for them to even be able to do that. Just the fact that Percy and the gang were able to perfectly align trucks to land on enemy engines, yeah, kinda pushing it, but whatever. I think the story of this film is also okay, but not great. I mean, it starts out alright, but then it just kinda falls apart at the climax. This movie's script absolutely needed some more attention before production. It's pretty slow paced for the first half or so, but it definitely picks up a lot. I do, however, think that this movie could have benefited greatly from spending more time developing the characters because, to be honest, very few of the characters in this have all that much development. Now, I know you may say, but you already know these characters from the original show. But this is essentially an alternate universe. Toby's a lot different from his original counterpart. Montague is literally a completely new character. As far as I'm concerned, everyone in this movie is just an OC character. We get pretty good development for Toby, Henrietta, and even Montague somewhat, but so much of the cast here and their relationship with Toby overall is kinda weak. I mean, there's so many times where I'll just look at a character and go, who the hell is that guy? Only Thomas and Gordon have their relationships with Toby well defined. Everyone else just kinda likes him for no other reasons than they're supposed to. Honestly, that's how a lot of the interpersonal relationships in this movie go. While I do like Toby and Henrietta's relationship, I swear 70% of her dialogue is just pep talks to Toby. Like, all we know about her most of the time is that some of the other coaches were mean to her, but does she care about anything else? Does she have any dreams, goals, anything? It just seems like all she's here to do is give Toby emotional support. I think the most ridiculous scene is where Toby and Henrietta are captured and Gordon is watching over them, and then Henrietta goes on this big speech where she's like, "You're a good person, Gordon. We know this isn't you."
You may think you are never appreciated, Gordon, but you're wrong. The coaches, the passengers, they loved you. They loved how gentle you were, how smoothly you pulled them along the line, how kind you were to them. They adored you. They even didn't mind when you broke down that one day, because of all the good you'd ever done before. You are appreciated, Gordon. Where is that kindness now?
Like, what? Bitch, you don't fucking know this guy at all. Literally all you've seen him do is be a huge piece of shit. And then Gordon just believes her and changes his mind on a dime. What the fuck? You don't know either of these assholes. As far as you're concerned, Toby ruined your life. He got you banned from your railway, and all your former friends hate you now. Like, if later in the movie these words sunk in and got him to change, maybe I could understand. But no, Henrietta is just running speech 100 and gets him to change instantly. It takes less than like 55 seconds, I counted it. The time from Henrietta asking for his help and then him having this shocked face showing he changed his mind takes less than 55 seconds. All that brainwashing done by Montague and the Diesels, as well as the pain of what he's gone through and the damage to his pride and ego, it all gets reversed in less time than the average goddamn TikTok. And again, Gordon doesn't know these two at all. How the fuck do they know how much people love him or how great of an engine he is? She's so obviously talking out of her caboose to get him to not let them die, and he just falls for it. How fucking stupid is this guy? Then he fucking sacrifices himself for these two. If Gordon was developed more and was shown to be more of a conflicted character earlier, I'd understand. But he gets all of 3 scenes before this, and he's just a jealous asshole the whole time. The same happens at the end, when the remaining Diesels are all forgiven and allowed to be on the railway. I'm not saying this redemption couldn't happen realistically, but they literally tried to fucking kill you all of 2 hours ago. Why do you trust them this fast? But before that, Montague and all his Diesel friends show up for a big fight, and then Montague brings up how Toby killed Mavis in an earlier fight, and all the other engines are like, "What? You killed someone?" Then this is literally never brought up again. It's even weirder because the first thing Toby does right after this scene is kill another engine with no witnesses. Why even put that dialogue in the movie if you weren't going to do anything with it? Montague is like, "He's a murderer."
Can we live with this killer amidst us? You have seen what being a hybrid engine has done to him. But I can assure you, my Diesels, your safety when I have my engine back.
Dude, you just threatened to murder Toby and all his friends in front of everyone mere seconds ago. Get off your high horse. But yeah, the first thing he does after this big revelation is just kill another engine. Like, there's no pattern recognition upon these engines. Then we get to the big battle scene, and we just see how hopelessly incompetent Montague is. Until he finds Henrietta. Wait, Henrietta? What the fuck is she still doing here? What use is keeping her on the island? Why didn't she evacuate alongside the other humans? I mean, I don't even understand the point of people evacuating in the first place. Literally just stand in a field 2 miles from the nearest train tracks and you'll be safe. But he even tried to get Henrietta off the mainland earlier in the movie. I don't know why he didn't try it again. I mean, he literally dropped her in enemy territory to get information. But was there seriously nowhere else he could have moved her later in the movie when he's well aware the island is about to become extremely dangerous? In fact, now that I think about it, why are all the humans so useless in this movie? The film does not make it clear if the engines actually need people operating them or not. You see the occasional person. I'm not sure if that's just part of the model or not. Like, does he just support what's going on? They even have the scene where Gordon's driver and fireman apparently disapprove of him, but he's still able to move around fine, so can they move on their own or not? The Fat Controller just leaves and lets Toby and Montague have their little war, but why? Why is he letting them engage in all this senseless destruction? Like, just tear up the tracks connecting the 2 railways and Montague has no way of even getting to yours. Anyways, time to talk about Montague himself because, to be honest, I really do not like this character. For one thing, why the holy hell is he Duck? As far as I remember, Duck was never evil in the original series. He sometimes had a bit of a stick up his ass, but he was still a nice guy. I don't understand why Duck of all characters is the villain. And again, he's basically an OC anyway, so why not just use one of the generic background characters then? Also, Oliver hangs out with him? Why? I have no idea. I know they were buddies in the original series, but here Montague was actually a Diesel who turned into a steam engine. Like, what does he even have to offer Oliver? Why does Oliver even like this brooding psychopath? Montague in general is just way too incompetent to be threatening. He just kind of stumbles into his plans and basically gets defeated in a matter of seconds. I mean, we already know Toby can kick this guy's ass with the stronger engine. He even admits it.
The truth is that if you were to face me yourself, one-on-one, you would lose.
So all he really has is his intellect, which he doesn't have either. This guy's a fucking moron. He just happens to come across Henrietta, but if he didn't, he'd basically be fucked. And even fucking Henrietta gives him trouble. Can this guy do anything right? And then he gets into this final showdown scene, and honestly, it's pretty much the same corny thing you've seen before. Oh, not another step or I'll fucking kill her. I'm not bluffing, I'll do it, I'll fucking do it. Look, I'm actually not too big on criticizing cliches. I mean, basically everything has cliches. I don't care that much. But when your writing literally feels like you're using a cliche checklist, I kinda roll my eyes a bit. I don't know. And then Montague just lets himself get cornered because I guess he forgot he was dealing with the literal strongest engine on the island. And then Toby's able to perfectly uncouple both the Diesel and Montague, but not Henrietta. I don't know how the hell that works. I guess Henrietta's brakes are literally stronger than Toby, even though Toby should be stronger than like 500 Henriettas. So then, despite knowing that Toby is extremely powerful, Montague just charges at Toby like a fucking buffoon and gets himself killed. I originally thought that Montague was basically committing suicide here because he couldn't live with his defeat, but seeing how he screams when he falls off the cliff and acts all shocked when he hits the water, a part of me wonders if he legit thought he could have won here. Honestly, I don't even think he needed Toby. This guy was inevitably going to get himself killed from his own stupidity.
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb.
And this was the one performance I talked about earlier that I don't really like. I feel like he's so obviously cartoonishly evil, it just kind of takes me out of it. This movie takes itself so seriously, so having like this extremely cliched, dark and brooding character, it just kind of sticks out. If they were able to take Duck's original personality and twist it into a villain, that would be kind of interesting, but he just has this overly evil voice. It sounds like someone doing some type of Shakespearean performance. Well, his name is Montague, so I guess that maybe makes sense. In some ways, I feel like Montague reminds me of Syndrome from The Incredibles. But I think Syndrome works better because he was written and acted in a more competent way. Syndrome has a sinister personality. It's not like he puts on this scary voice or anything. He just kind of talks the same for the most part. Also, where there are a few cliches with Syndrome, his backstory felt more gradual. We already knew that he had murdered possibly hundreds of superheroes before trying to get to Mr. Incredible, so it makes sense by now that he'd be so far gone, he'd be pure evil. Montague, to our knowledge, has just been sulking this whole time. And I get being turned into a weak steam engine would ruin him, but the man barely knew Toby.
You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are.
Yeah, basically that. Syndrome had this entitlement as a kid that grew with him, but took a much darker turn. We basically know nothing of what kind of person Montague was before the accident. Was he nice? Was he evil? Did he have a prejudice against steamies back then? What's even this guy's plan to get his engine back? He doesn't have hands, so he needs human mechanics to do it for him. Don't know how he's planning on doing that. Honestly, now that I think about it, shouldn't he hate humans more than he hates Toby? I mean, they are the ones that ultimately made the decision to switch his engine out and ruin his life. I don't even get how this works. Wouldn't a diesel engine require oil? We never see Toby taking oil. I'm obviously no engineer, but I'm not sure you could just swap out engines like that. Someone will have to correct me on this. There do appear to be hybrid engines in real life though, so I'll just give the movie the benefit of the doubt for this. The ending just wrapped things up a little too quickly. I know the movie has been over an hour and a half at this point, but it still feels a little too rushed. I already mentioned how easily the Diesels get defeated, and I already mentioned how easily the Diesels get forgiven. And then Toby rides off into the sunset. The end. In conclusion, as most of you probably would have figured out by now, I did not enjoy this movie very much. Not necessarily hating it, but it's not something I would ever watch again. However, I wouldn't really call it bad. It is just a fan film for YouTube made by a guy who, to my knowledge, was still a teenager when this was being made. It's a really ambitious production, And most of the issues that it has are just problems that I personally have, but I'm aware a lot of people love it. I mean, it had millions of views, so obviously. I definitely commend the effort put into it, but with the cheesy writing and underwhelming characters, I just couldn't get into it. I'm sorry. Yeah, Shed 17 was better, bye. Oh yeah, there was a post-credits scene with Oliver, so that's something, I guess, whatever. I'll watch the sequel and do a review if this episode gets at least a few thousand views or something. I don't know. I mean, as long as it's not like nearly 3 fucking hours. What the